All right, everybody, welcome to the Think Like a Game Designer workshop. I know it is early in the morning. I'm excited that you guys are all here. My goal is to be as useful as possible to all of you based on the things that you most want to accomplish with your day. Now, most people typically come here because they want to learn how to design games. But the principles that I'm going to teach you will work for any creative field you want to do, whether it's improving your business, writing a book, helping out, finding a better routine for your day-to-day life, right? These are basic principles that help you define what it is you want to do, learn and go through an iterative design loop, and then actually build a career and add value to the world. So that sound pretty good? Yeah, all right, we're getting excited. Good. All right, the other thing is I hate slides that have tons of text and try to tell you everything that I'm going to be the one to tell you. So we only have a few slides and everything's going to be compressed into a few key images. The downside is I also hate when it's just one person up front talking and you guys don't get to do anything. So this is actually going to be interactive. So if you don't have a pen and paper or some way to write things down, I recommend getting one out. Because we're going to try to do things that will work on your specific projects and your specific challenges. All right, get this party started. First key image here is the key questions pyramid, right? People come up to me and they ask, how can I learn to design? How can I be a game designer? How can I start a business? And answering that question requires that you answer the lower levels of the pyramid first, right? Before you know how you can do something, you need to know what it is that you want to do. And that means you need to define very clearly, what does the end product look like? What does success look like? What does failure look like, right? If you want to make a game that's just for you and your friends to play, then the how of how you do that is very different than if you want to make a AAA video game, right? Very, very different processes. So knowing what that is really important. But before you can answer that question, you have to know why you want to do it in the first place, right? Do you want to make games because it's creatively fulfilling? Do you want to write a book because you have something you really have to say and get out there? Do you want to change the world? Do you want to grow your business so that you can support your family? Getting to deep and powerful whys is an incredibly important tool when you're going to actually build things in your life. So I'm going to start with my own why, and then I'm going to get some of your guys' whys. I started out in game design kind of by accident. I played Magic the Gathering professionally throughout high school, won a bunch of tournaments, paid my way through college, super fun, but wasn't something I really considered a career, right? Then I went to law school to get serious, because that's what I was supposed to do. And I was miserable. And I was lucky enough that because of my past career in Magic, I got offered to do a summer internship at Upper Deck working on the Versus System trading card game and World of Warcraft miniatures game and a bunch of other really successful games. And I found that this was amazing, right? I actually loved what I did. I suddenly became passionate about making people happy with the work that I did. Okay? And so suddenly being able to be in a career where I loved what I did, where I came alive, where I was able to connect with people, gave me motivation. And it gave me motivation in a way that kept me going through a lot of very difficult challenges, because it's not easy to make a transition. I moved across the country. I pissed off my parents dropping out of law school. And having that why not only defined the work that I was able to do, but it also helped me get past those challenges along the way. So making sure that you have a clearly defined why is going to be something that is going to drive you through, okay? So let's find out why you guys are all here, okay? So by a quick show of hands, how many of you are here because you have a game that you're working on and you want to be able to design it and get it published? How many of you have a concept for a game but you're not really sure what the next steps to take are? How many of you have business or other thing that you really want to get design principles and clear thinking on to be able to apply these things to the rest of your life? Okay, and how many of you have no idea why you're here? You're pretty sure you got in the wrong room by accident. You're hoping you can sneak out when I'm not paying attention. No. Okay. All right. Good. So it's important to have the why, and I purposefully, will tailor this conversation to you guys. This group has a lot more people who are really interested in the business principles than the last talk I gave. So I'm really going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But we're going to do something that's useful to everybody. Okay. So the key questions pyramid. If at any point in your life you feel stuck, you're not really sure what the next step is, go back to this, right? Just start asking these questions in sequential order, and you'll find you can get a lot of clarity very quickly. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of this talk, okay? This is the core design. This is the fundamental principle of how you solve novel problems. And we're going to talk through each step individually, and we're going to give you guys opportunities to move through it, okay? The first step is inspiring. And what that means is, where is your inspiration coming from? What is the core idea? What is the core problem you want to solve? What is the core concept you want to get across? What is the thing that's really, really important to you? Now, when you're looking for inspiration, especially as a game designer, but as in any other field really, you are looking to generally create an emotion, an experience in your audience. okay? If you guys think about why you're here in the first place, right? Why you play games in the first place, right? Everybody in this room is passionate about games, is passionate about the gaming industry in some way. What brought you to this, right? And if you think back on your life, you're gonna come into experiences where you're sitting around the family table playing and connecting with family and friends. You are in a competition, you're getting your blood flowing as these exciting moments are coming, right? You're here at this community, you're hanging around in the bar and connecting with people over a game and making new friendships and learning new things, right? Those emotions are the things, that's the cash value of what we do here, right? It's the cash value of the design and the experiences you are. And the same thing is true in your business, right? If you have a store, why do people come to your store? Because they want to purchase a game? No, that's the next step. They go to your store because they want community, because they want to feel like there's somewhere that they belong, because they want to feel welcome, right? There's a variety of things that you provide when you're in the store that you create and the things that you do that give the emotions to the people you want. So your inspiration at its core is always going to be some core emotional experience. And when you go through this core design loop, you're going to want to keep track of that core emotional experience, because whenever you get to those fuzzy questions, should I add this mechanic, shouldn't I, what kind of format should I use, how do I want to market it, you always want to think back to that core emotional experience, because that's going to give you your guidepost of how you move up. Okay, a couple other tips for inspiration, and then I'm going to have you guys do the exercise. Tip number 1, in order to have inspiration, you need to be curious about the world. This is what I call ABE, always be exploring. By going out in the world and seeing a lot of different things, you will have a lot of fodder for your creative ideas, okay? People think creativity is some kind of like magical, out there other thing, like, oh man, that's a creative person, I could never do that, okay? That's a load of crap, sorry, but it is. When I started working in game design, all I knew how to do was play games well. I didn't know how to design things. I didn't think of myself as creative. I went through and I learned the step-by-step process for how to become creative. And that's where I derived these principles from. And that's why I like teaching this, right? You want to know what my why is because I went through a very hard time and I thought that I couldn't be creative and I had to stumble along the way. And I want to make that road easier for everybody else, because if you just can think things through and you're willing to do the hard work of going through this loop, you can be creative. So what you're going to do is not just play lots of games out there, right? Being out there and playing lots of different games will get you lots of ideas for games, but also check out other things that interest you in the field or in other fields, right? If you as a game store are trying to find a way to make your business better, make your community better, what about things like coffee shops, right? What is it that draws people to coffee shops? Or what is it about other store models or other areas that could sort of get people excited about your store, and maybe there's some concepts that you can port over, right? Or if you're really passionate about gardening, right? Maybe there's game mechanics that you could use about growing and how different plants work together, right? If you guys are familiar with the game Wingspan, somehow a game about birds got really popular because somebody really, really was passionate about birds, and it's shown through in the design, right? So you never know where your inspiration is going to come from. So if you have a passion, if you have a curiosity, follow it. Go out there, learn things, and that's going to give you a lot of material so that no matter what you're doing, you're going to be able to come up with more stuff. The last tip before we start the exercise for inspiration is, in general, when you're trying to create an inspiration, you need to make it very bite-sized and communicatable to your audience, right? This is like in the form of what I call an elevator pitch, right? Elevator pitch is pretty common term. Is everybody familiar with it? Anybody not familiar with the term elevator pitch? Okay, so an elevator pitch is, imagine you're getting into an elevator with somebody who's like really important, some like wealthy investor or somebody who you need to convince to like stay and work with your project. You only have like 30 seconds before the elevator gets to their floor and they get off the elevator, and you need to come up with something to say that's going to get them excited enough that they're going to keep talking to you after those elevator doors open, right? So that gives you that sense of like urgency. And the same thing is going to be true if you're working on a game and you're trying to pitch it to somebody when they're walking by this hall. You guys have had this experience, right? You walk by, there's tons of people there, somebody has seconds to get your attention and pull you in, all right? If they don't do that, you're gone. They're never going to buy their game, let alone on a shelf in a game store, okay? So one tip for being able to pull this is typically elevator pitches are easiest done in the form of A plus B or A plus B with C, right? So it's like Angry Birds, but with Star Wars. Or with my game Ascension, I would describe it to somebody as like, it's like the deck building of Dominion, but the varied card drafting of Magic, right? For somebody that knows gaming. And if you don't know gaming, I'd be like, oh, it's like this game where you fight monsters and build your own deck, and there's a whole variety of different ways you can play, right? Depends on who your audience is, exactly how you want to tell it, but something in those formats. And I want to dispel another myth, because a lot of people think that creativity is, again, this sort of like, oh, I had a creative idea that nobody's ever had before. That never happens, okay? All creativity is combining things in ways that haven't been combined before. So don't be afraid to, quote unquote, steal ideas that are out there, so long as you're authentically trying to build something new by taking ideas and presenting them in a way they weren't presented before, you're going to be fine. And in fact, especially when you're getting started, everybody kind of copies, right? Even Stephen King in his book on writing talks about this a lot, right? Everybody starts off by mimicking the people that they love and the things that they love, and then over time you develop your own voice and things. You can't help but have your own voice come through in your work. All right, enough of me. Now we're going to move on to framing. I call it framing because it's just like framing a picture, right? It's important what's inside, and it's even more important what's outside. Another myth about creativity is that being wide open is a great thing, right? And if anybody's ever tried to design a game or write a book or build something new when you're just staring at a blank sheet of paper, it's incredibly intimidating. It's incredibly difficult. And in fact, giving yourself restrictions breeds creativity. That the very act of forcing yourself into a box will help force your mind to come up with new solutions. So that's one of the things that we're going to do here, and that's one of the purposes of framing, right? If I say, you make a game right now, you have no idea what to do. But if I say, listen, you're going to have about 20 minutes, I need you to make a game using only the materials that are in your backpack, and it's got to be playable by a 5-year-old. Everybody's mind starts turning, right? There's only so much you can do. Yeah.
The limitations can like boost your creativity.
Absolutely.
You have hooks that instead of thinking whatever you can do, I'm trying to solve this problem that helps your mind to concentrate.
That's exactly right. And I'll give you one fun tip if you want to play around with these ideas. Literally pick something random. Like so anybody can shout out anything, and you can start making designs. Let's try the exercise here. Go ahead, give me something random. Kumquat. I always love doing these exercises. You never know what you're gonna get. Okay, so if I want to make a game about kumquats, the things that come to mind, I could be making a game that's kind of a fun party game where people have to say words that sound like they're really inappropriate, but they aren't. And you have to try to get people to guess the word, and everybody knows the word sounds inappropriate, but it's really something innocent. I think could be super fun. Obviously, you could have one where there's a kind of different vegetable and fruit kind of game where you're actually trying to build the perfect salad. I don't know if anybody saw the game Point Salad they were showing off here. It's kind of a similar fun concept. So you can see where instantly there's some ideas that come out of there where I didn't know what I was going to say before that, and I certainly didn't know he was going to say that. No, but seriously, if you get stuck, try that. Like, go to a random page in a book, pick a random word, and now think, how does my game relate to those ideas? And it's amazing what's going to happen.
There's some method to use the global game jam, yeah, that you have a kind of hook as a word, yeah? And I'm running design workshops that I give the topic, but also a mechanical limitation or a component limitation.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think that kind of stuff is great. And I also think one of the challenges, especially with new designers, is everybody gets way too ambitious with what they want to try, okay? If you're new at this, start small. Okay, and in fact, I kind of mentioned my game Ringmaster earlier. It is a 34 card deck, playable in 10 minutes or less, and it was something that for me was super fun to design because when the games are small, easy to change, and short to iterate, you can go through this core design loop very fast, right? I could play 30 iterations in one day. Whereas if a game is going to be requiring me to program a huge amount, or is going to be a 3-hour monstrosity, right? I can only maybe get an iteration a day at best. Usually it takes way, way longer, right? So small scope at first is really, really powerful. And I'm going to give you 2 tips also during this phase. And I will tell you that if you remember nothing else from this entire talk other than these 2 tips, I will have changed your life. This will have been well worth your time. Okay, sound good? Tip number 1, write things down. Okay? And I'm going to tell a little story about this because I really want to drive it home, and it's been driven home to me a bunch. I was working on my game Soulforge, which I co-designed with Richard Garfield. We were working on set 2. We had a huge team. It was about 8 of us in the room. We were brainstorming. We were coming up with ideas. Now, this can take a lot of work. It's a very long process. It's very tiring. But after multiple hours, we started getting in a rhythm. We started getting some really great ideas. We had everything done. And my team is very well trained. I had somebody in the room who was writing on a notepad, get things done. And then we started thinking, all right, now we're getting hungry. We earned a lunch break. We went and got some Chinese food. I have a bunch of projects running at the same time. So once we kind of had that one down, we worked on some other stuff, came back to it a week later. Nobody remembered anything that we talked about, right? No idea what was going on. And so I'm like, all right, no worries. Wrote it down on the notepad. I go over, look at the notepad, pick it up. Kung Hunan beef, Kung Pao chicken, pork fried rice. He was just doodling his lunch order. He didn't write down anything useful, okay? And so we lost an entire day's work. So now it's a running gag around my office that anytime we start talking about something important, somebody shouts, Hunan beef. Somebody gets out a piece of paper and starts writing. You'll also notice I have this notepad with me. I carry it with me wherever I go. So whenever I have an idea, I can write it down, okay? Everybody has brilliant ideas. Most people lose them because they never write them down. And even when your game or the thing you're working on right now, maybe it doesn't work. Again, I'll use Ringmaster as an example because it's top of mind, but the mechanics for Ringmaster, I started working on over 10 years, just about 10 years ago. Okay, it was a bunch of pieces that never quite fit together, and it wasn't until this last year that we had a new designer come in and came up with the circus theme, and everything kind of all clicked and came together. But because I had written those things down, I was able to use those ideas and make them come to life later. Okay, so Hunan beef, don't forget. Second most important thing, and it comes into the framing concept. Deadlines are magic. Deadlines are magic, okay? The most important frame that you're gonna do when you go through this exercise is coming up with a deadline for what you're doing, right? I mentioned when I first started becoming a game designer, I got hired working for somebody else. That meant if I did not finish my game, I got fired. Guess what? I finished my game, all right? I had no idea what I was doing. Not only did I do that, but I ended up becoming, for World of Warcraft miniatures, not only I designed the game, and then in order to make that get finished, I had to figure out how to make miniatures. Like I became a product manager, even though I had no idea how to do that. All because there were deadlines, and if I didn't do it, I was gonna fail, I was gonna get fired. Now, you may not be in that position, right? Obviously, if you're working on games, you're writing a book, you're doing something that's not your main career right now, it's very easy to get those things pushed off by the important things of day to day. If this is your passion, if this is something that you really care about, you have to make time for it, you have to make the deadlines matter. So there's a couple ways to do this. One, write it down, right? Two, you can try to make things public and put leverage on yourself, right? For some people, just writing down your own deadline is enough, but other people, you want to post it in a public forum, right? If you want, you can post it at the end of this talk. I'll give you guys the link to a Facebook group that I invite everybody that comes to one of my talks to. You can post it in there, get support from other people. You can tag me on Twitter at Justin_Gary. You can post it to your friends. You can schedule a game night. Hey, we're gonna play test my new game in 2 weeks. You don't have a new game yet. Guess what? You're gonna get one, right? It's powerful, all right? These are, if you're serious about this sort of stuff, make deadlines that really matter, all right? So now we're gonna do it right here, right now. Now we'll keep moving to my favorite phase of the whole thing, brainstorming. Brainstorming is where we're gonna get to come up with all of the crazy ideas we can, as many as humanly possible. We're gonna organize them into a way that makes sense, and then we're gonna kill as many of them as possible, okay? So there's 3 distinct phases to brainstorming. Now what I'm gonna talk about today specifically is solo brainstorming. If you don't have a lot of experience with this, and frankly, even if you do, I highly recommend doing solo brainstorming before you start collaborating with somebody else. I have done an extensive amount of work with the Wharton School of Business. We've actually created a product called the Breakthrough Game, which is designed for groups to be able to work together. We used like current research. We've run it for companies like Google and Zillow and NASA. And so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to how creative teams work together. It's a very complicated step-by-step process to do that well. I'm gonna give you a very simple 3-step process to do this well as an individual. Okay, so step 1 is the creation phase. Okay, the creation phase is where you are trying to come up with as many things as possible to get the best ideas onto a piece of paper. Now, one of the challenges with creation is most people have this little voice inside their head that every time you come up with an idea, it's like, no, that won't work because of this, or no, that's stupid, or you better not say that, right? We all have that voice. Right now, you're gonna take that voice, you're gonna go tell it to sit in the corner. The point of the creation phase is to get as many ideas onto paper as possible. So typically, I'm gonna recommend you take 20 minutes and set a visible timer and do nothing but write during that period, right? If your pen stops moving for more than 10 seconds, you're doing it wrong, okay? You're censoring yourself. You wanna be able to get those ideas out there because even if an idea is terrible, like this game requires 0 gravity, right? I need solid gold pieces of aliens, I don't know. Doesn't matter, right? But those ideas can then turn into something useful, right? Maybe the 0 gravity game, you need to have something that uses magnets and it can actually cause things to like levitate on a board, right? That's possible. Or maybe you know, there's different ways that a bad idea is gonna turn into a good idea. In fact, when I hire game designers, I will always pick somebody that's gonna throw out 20 bad ideas and 2 good ones, rather than somebody that's gonna be quiet and maybe they'll get a good idea at one point. Okay, because it's gonna be easy to filter those bad ideas later. The other problem people have during this phase is that they, once you get a good idea, you stop. You're like, oh yeah, that'll work, that's fine. We don't want the good idea. We want the great idea, right? We want the thing that's hidden deep in your psyche that you're not willing to get out yet. And so this myth that there's one right answer is really corrosive to the creative process. There's many right answers, and you want to see if you can find one that you wouldn't have thought of on the surface. Okay, that's why we devote a lot of time to that. So that's creation. The second phase is organization. In the organization phase, excuse me, you're going to do the same sort of thing, set a timer for 20 minutes, and then you're going to take this giant jumble of crazy ideas that you have, and you're going to try to move them into some kind of pattern. Okay? You're going to find groupings that are naturally going to form together. Now, if you're writing a book, maybe that'll be in chapters. If you're doing a game, maybe there'll be sections for, okay, these are core resources, here's the victory conditions, here's some themes, right? You kind of start patterning them around. If any of you guys are familiar with mind mapping software, I find this stuff very useful for this sort of exercise because you can kind of just drag and drop things. If you just Google mind maps, there's a bunch of them out there that are free. But just writing on a piece of paper is fine. Just make sure you have big paper, lots of opportunity to write and doodle and move around. And so while you're forming these categories, you're going to find that some of your, there'll be gaps, right? You'll be like, okay, well, I have a victory condition and I have a resource, but I don't really have a way for players to interact here, or this doesn't really make sense. And then your brain is going to want to fill those gaps. Go ahead and do that, right? So you're going to be writing down more ideas during this phase 2. And as you're organizing, I'm going to use a game as a specific example, you're going to start wanting to drive towards this idea of like a completed thing that you could then prototype, right? So if there's something that like isn't there that you could kind of get done, you're going to want to be focusing on filling that in. So that's the organization phase. The last phase is the mean phase. The last phase is the elimination phase. Okay, this is where that nasty person I told you to go sit in the corner that tells you everything that can't work, he gets to come out and play again. Okay, what you're going to do then is you're going to take this massive, brilliant, crazy array of ideas, and you're going to try to eliminate it down to the simplest possible thing you can prototype. Okay, you want to make it as easy as possible. The way I like to think about this is consider yourself to be a scientist. Consider yourself to be a scientist, and you're trying to come up with a hypothesis that you can test. Okay. Do I think that for Ascension, right? I think Dominion would be more fun if it wasn't always the same cards all the time, and it didn't take like an hour to set up and break down, right? And so I tried that out, and so you want to test that as easily as possible. So the ideas that you're killing, you can come back to them later. It's a loop. You're going to come back to it, but you want to make things as simple as possible. And I'll talk more about this. Prototyping. This is the place where most people get stuck. Prototyping is very intimidating. Prototyping takes a lot of work. It can be very hard. So I'm going to give you 2 key principles to help take some of the pressure off. Number 1, your prototype's going to suck. Embrace it. Okay? First prototypes always suck. Right? When you start with the idea, you have an inspiration. I'm going to make this awesome game. It's going to be super cool. You're brainstorming. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you're thinking about all those great games on the shelf and your favorite games. You're like, oh, it's going to look just like that, right? No, it does not. It never will. I mean, maybe down the road, but not now. First prototypes are going to suck. And in fact, I've been doing this for 20 years. My first prototypes still suck, okay? I don't show them to anybody because they're real, real bad. But that's okay, because one of the things you're gonna do is you're gonna be changing them a lot. You're gonna be manipulating them a lot, okay? So the second principle is be lazy, okay? In fact, if you have a pretty prototype and you spend a lot of time making this beautiful thing, and you go to Game Crafters and you get art done and you have the whole thing and it's all laid out, and you need to change something, what's that gonna feel like? It's gonna suck. You don't want to write things on your nice, pretty board. You don't want to change stuff. You actually will feel an unconscious resistance to changing and making updates. That's actually harmful to you. So you actually will benefit by making cheap, ugly prototypes when you start, okay? And that's why actually in this group, we're gonna do our prototype is literally just gonna be talking through something. My first prototype is always something I do in my head. And like a crazy person, I will like talk it through to myself and say, okay, what would be next? All right, then I would draw a card, then I would need to grab and roll dice. How would I, and I will just walking through, because when we have an idea in our head, a lot of times it's just, we skip steps. And just all you need to do is sort of force yourself to walk through all the steps. And then when you're prototyping after that, think about what's the easiest way to do that physically, right? If you're, when I was working on my book, I started out just doing blog posts. Right? And I did blog posts on the different topics I want to do, and that was a short, easy way for me to say, hey, does anybody like what I'm saying? Is this useful to anybody besides me? Right? And that was an easier way for me to get started. Writing a book was intimidating, but writing a blog post wasn't. If you're trying to prototype a game, right? With my first version of Ascension, I just shuffled the deck of Dominion together and dealt out a center row, and it didn't work, it sucked, but it gave me enough that like, oh yeah, there's something here. Now I'll spend more time actually physically building a thing on my own, okay? So be very lazy. Don't be afraid your first prototype's gonna suck. And then the key is be willing to make changes, be willing to go through this loop again and again and again. I don't have time to talk about it in this class, but it's one of the things I talk about in the book, is that the core design loop sort of takes you through design phases. And in the beginning, you're working on the core engine and everything's pretty loose, and you work your way down in finer and finer detail till you get to a polished, finished product, okay? All right, so who would like to share their prototype with the group? All right, my man.
Right.
What's your name?
Zach.
Zach, awesome. All right, what do you got, Zach?
All right, so it's a push your luck dice game where you're trying to sneak explosives into a dessert shop, past different layers of security.
Explosives into a dessert shop, okay.
Right, and there's a different security guard on shift every day who can detect different things that you're trying to sneak in. And it's called Let's Blow This Popsicle Stand.
Okay, all right. That sounds mostly elevator pitch. So what does it mean when I say I'm trying to roll dice and sneak through security?
So the dice would have popsicles with like fuses coming out of them on it.
Okay, so
and
different sides or different popsicles? Like
right, different colors
yeah.
and different shapes. And the different security guards, like this one pays attention to red popsicles and this one pays attention to blue popsicles, or, you know, a mixture. And so you have to get enough explosives in each night that it won't care about.
So there's like a card that's like blue security guards. I have to roll dice that aren't blue.
Right, you're trying to. Yeah.
Is there like time pressure, or do I only get to roll so many times, or what?
Yeah. So every blue die he detects and takes away from you, and so you lose dice that you're rolling as you roll. And if you get too many blues, you won't have enough to actually sneak in and score points each day.
So I try to roll as many points as I can, but every time I roll a blue, I lose that die. And I have to just like re-roll
the other ones that you can keep, or you can re-roll them.
And does everybody face the same guy?
No. So everybody would have a different goal of like, okay, I'm trying to get as many reds in as I can, or I'm trying to get, you know, an equal number of this one and this one.
Okay. All right. So who's your target audience for this game?
So I think it's a little more casual gamer. It might be like an in-between, you know, more heavy games kind of mindset for people here. For people out in the world, I think it could be like family friendly, where, you know, everybody understands the concept of don't do this, do that.
All right. All right, so I'm gonna give you a little feedback, all right?
Please.
So the concept is cute. We got a chuckle out of the room on your sort of inspiration, I like. If I'm gonna have desserts, I really would like desserts to be a part of what's going on. Some cute images of desserts somewhere here, whether that's on sides of the dice, that, and maybe being able to sneak things, like when I first heard it, I thought maybe like I'd be sneaking things inside of a cake or something. So it'd be pretty cool if you could have a way to have hidden information to some degree. Like maybe, you know, you roll the dice in a cup and you're like, all right, I'm gonna try to sneak this through, and then another player has to like decide, all right, is this guard gonna check it or not? And, you know, so there's a little bit of like fun kind of interaction there. Might be something. And then, or creating some form of interaction between the players, because that felt like a solo game to me. Right? So if I have some way that the other players are involved in my turn or care about what I'm doing specifically, I think it might be more fun.
That makes sense.
All right. So you'll notice two things. One, I asked some clarifying information, right? Try to figure out what was going on, what's the point of what he's doing, try to make sure I had it clear in my head, and then I gave him some feedback. Now, is my feedback correct?
No.
No, it's not correct. It's feedback. Yeah. It's my opinion, okay? He could take it or not. And this is one of the most important things when you start doing testing. We're kind of blurring the prototyping and testing. This is testing. You're gonna get a ton of feedback, okay? Doesn't mean that you should listen to it. Okay? What it means is you should be taking it in and evaluating it for what it is. Now, feedback comes in multiple forms, right? If he's making a game for 6-year-olds, what's fun for me is not necessarily gonna be fun for a 6-year-old, so maybe my feedback isn't as valuable. If one of the things that you're gonna learn is that people will tell you things that are just not true. My mom loves all my games. She does not, but she'll tell me she loves all my games. Right? When you're getting feedback, you want to be paying as much or more attention to the implicit feedback as opposed to the explicit feedback. Right? People, when they're playing your game, if they're looking around and checking their phone while there are things going on, they're not engaged. That's a problem. If they don't, one of the best things is if they ask you to play again independently, you're on the right track. If they don't, keep working. Okay? Look around and see what kinds of emotions are going on. Are people laughing and joking, and or are they confused and squinting their eyes and not, you know, reading cards or just playing things? And, you know, watch what they do as much as what they say. Also, when you're taking in feedback, divorce your ego from the outcome. We all get too attached to our creative babies. Okay, whether it's your book, whether it's your game, whether it's your actual baby, everybody thinks they're awesome. We all know the truth. But in reality, you want to pretend like you're not the person that made the product when you're doing the testing. You want to pretend like it was made by somebody else. In fact, it can even be helpful to literally tell the person that you're, like a playtest group, that you're testing a game for a friend. It's not even yours. Because it'll help them give you more honest feedback, and it'll help you even psychologically treat it that way. Okay? Everybody thinks their own stuff is great, and I have fallen into this trap many, many times. There's not a single game that I have put on the market, even very successful ones, where I don't look back and think, man, I would have done that differently, that could have been done better, right? And a lot of times it's because my ego got attached to an idea, and I thought this was too cool, I can't let it go. So you gotta be ready to kill your babies. Get down to something that's as simple as possible to test. You tested it with somebody, you got feedback. There's only one piece left, which is iterating, okay? That means you're going through this circle again and again. Now, based on the feedback you got, you have to decide a couple of things, right? One possibility is the other person said, you're brilliant, it's perfect, go ahead, right? Or you generally got good feedback. You're like, okay, this is worth it. I'm gonna move to the next step, right? If it's feedback on a book, I'm gonna now draft a few chapters. If it's feedback on the game, I'm gonna like, all right, let me make a physical prototype I can test. That's great. If it didn't work that way and someone's like, that idea is stupid, this is no good, right? You now have to decide, okay, is that the right kind of feedback? Do I need to get a second opinion? Is there something that's not there, that's not right there? Or, awesome, that didn't work, but maybe there was another piece of it that went and would be useful, right? Maybe in his mind, this was the whatever exploding cakes or whatever it was, popsicles was a cool dice game, but maybe he really liked the idea of the kind of bluffing style, and maybe he's going down a different track, right? Or maybe there was something else in your brainstorm that you can now pull from that you would then create your idea from, right? It's easy to kind of, if an idea is received negatively, that can be great because it's gonna know, don't go that way, go a different way. The worst case scenario in testing, and unfortunately comes up very often, is your feedback's kind of in the middle, right? It's like, it's all right. A lot of times games die in this world, right? Because you don't end up with a clear direction. When you're in that situation, there's two things I recommend. One path is just keep going, okay? Especially when you're starting off, find momentum, just change something small, go again. Try another group, make something else, refine the prototype. Just keep going through the loop until you can get to something that's there, because when you're in that fuzzy zone, it's very dangerous, things can die. The other option is let it sit, okay? One of the things that I love about working on so many different projects, I have about 10 to 12 projects running at a time, is if I ever get stuck on a game, I will write down all the things about it, right, Hunan beef, and I will set it aside for a little while, work on something else and come back with fresh eyes. And a lot of times that can give you perspective. When you've been heads down on something for a really long time, you can get blind to the thing that's right in front of your face. So those are two different options to go through. But basically, you know, we did a very compressed version here, but you guys are now like living the life of a designer. Okay, you go through that iteration again and again. The more you do it, the faster it's going to get for you, the better your intuitions are going to be. And that is the process. So you got to learn to enjoy that process because you're going to live here, right? My favorite part of the process overall, when you first come up with that awesome idea and you're like, this is going to be amazing. And then I love when you're done and you've got this product and you're like, I made this thing. And the rest of it, man, it can be tough. Okay, it can be tough. So you just, you know, embrace that and go through the cycle and you're going to be able to make amazing things, okay? So now you know everything you need to know to design games, to create new stuff, to make something that's really awesome. However, many of you want to go beyond that, right? You don't just want to create something, you also want to make it your career. You also want to make it something that you can make a living off of, that you can grow. And that's what this last slide is about. It's what I call the career arrow. Kind of a spiral here, but there's three major steps that you want to take when you want to turn something into a career. You want to add value, you want to make something grow. The first step is to add value, right? Any community you want to be a part of, if you're not adding value to it, if you're not providing something useful, you're wasting a lot of your time and you're not going to be able to build relationships and connection like you want to. Now, one of the great things about you guys being here, right, you're all part of Gama, you're all part of the Game Trade organization, many of you have stores, many of you are part of the industry already. You already have amazing ways to add value and build a community, right? If you write a blog post, if you give feedback to manufacturers, if you have game nights, if you allow play test games for other people, right? You're going to be able to create community, you're going to create an audience and people that are going to care what you have to say when you want to promote your own game, when you want to launch your own product. Right? We have our own playtest programs at Stoneblade. The people that are in it are constantly giving us great feedback. Many of them want to design their own games. And you know what? When they come and pitch me a game, you better believe I'm going to give them a lot more attention and a lot more care than somebody that just comes up to me off the street, right? That just makes sense. People want to do that. So find different ways. Whatever your personal talents are, whatever your personal skills are, find ways to add value to the community. This is an incredibly welcoming community. There's tons of ways to do that. Right? Even when I was talking about for publishing my book, right? I started writing blog articles, I started giving talks, I started doing these things for free. I don't make any money off of this stuff, but I started adding value to people. They seemed to like it. And so when I launched my book, it was a lot more successful because they would talk about it, they would buy it, they would do things, right? I similarly launched a podcast, which if you guys want to follow up, Think Like a Game Designer, you can download it for free on iTunes or Google Podcasts or wherever. I interview top game designers. We talk about the principles of design, how you can apply them in your life, all totally free. Right? It's a way for me to build community, it's a way for me to add value to people, and then that's going to continue to hopefully make people buy more of my stuff when I need to sell things, or at least give me more opportunities to learn from other people too, right? Because I get to talk to great designers. Even in these talks, a lot of times people will come up with awesome ideas that I then am able to incorporate So you add value, that lets you build a community, and then the last piece, which is really important, is learning and growing, okay? I mentioned as you're going through this core design loop, you're gonna hit a lot of failures. You're gonna make sucky prototypes. You're gonna get negative feedback. You're gonna have to kill your babies. This part can feel really discouraging. But when you realize that even those things that are failures, quote unquote, even those things that are setbacks, are the things that you're gonna learn and they're gonna get you to move forward and build new things, right? I've used the example of the game Ringmaster a lot, but I failed at making the game I wanted to make for nearly a decade. But those lessons I got from there were then able to make something that was awesome that I was able to release now, right? My company almost went completely bankrupt when I launched in SoulForge, and we tried to make a huge thing, and we made millions of dollars, and we lost millions of dollars, and I almost lost everything. But that helped me really learn what to focus on and learn how to, you know, run a company more efficiently and be able to make things that and do the stuff that I'm best at and get other people to do the things that I wasn't so good at. So even those painful things are opportunities to grow, and if you frame it that way, right, you can't fail. And it's a really, really powerful thing as you're pushing through. The creative work, the steps I've told you, none of them are complicated, right? I mean, I really did talk through everything that you need to know in less than an hour. But going through them can be emotionally challenging. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to create. You have to be willing to try to help other people. And if you can follow that path, you can accomplish anything. All right, that's the end of the talk. I'm happy to use the last 5 minutes to take your guys' questions, but hopefully that was very helpful for you guys. Anybody have any questions or things that they want to have? Go ahead.
So, as part of the process of evaluating and, you know, getting feedback, what if you're the one giving feedback? How do you go about deciding, oh, this is a good thing, a good mechanic, or this needs to be reworked on? How do you make those kind of decisions?
That's a great question. So, you know, the question is, how do you give great feedback? What is it, you know, being someone that gives good feedback? A couple of things. One, try to keep in mind the goals of whatever you're evaluating, right? That's one of the first questions I ask is, who's the target audience, right? What are you trying to do? So if you're giving feedback that says, oh, well, I wouldn't want to play a cake dice rolling game. I want to play a, you know, train game, or I want to play, right? That's not helpful, right? But so you want to make sure you're giving feedback to the person based on what their objectives are. You want to be able, all right, we'll wrap it up after this. You want to be able to avoid direct criticism. Try not to use words like "that's stupid." You know, very often you can say, "Hey, this worked for me, this didn't," or "Have you thought about?" Not couching things in ways that are directly attacking makes people more able to receive the feedback. And then also just pay attention to where you are in the process. So one of the things when I have my first early prototypes, I pretty much only show them to other game designers because, like, the game's not balanced. Their numbers are all over the place. The template's really fuzzy. And if I showed it to a regular player, they'd be like, "Oh, that card's broken. That doesn't make any sense." That's not I'm not at that phase, right? The earlier phase is, does the fundamental design work? Is the core emotions of the game coming through, right? And again, this is something I talk about more in detail in the book about what each phase means, but knowing where somebody's at and giving feedback to that phase is also really valuable. So I hope that was helpful.